Sup guys, this is my analysis on the crypto market. Let's see where price wants to get to. So this is the 15 minutes time frame. I've plotted all these areas because I was trying to take a trade, but let me just clear everything off and then explain what is happening. So clearly you can see I've told you that if we say the market is in a downtrend, it has a structure. And if you really want to be a good trader, or you really want to be good at analyzing the markets, you need to put it at the back of your mind. You need to know the structure, the market structure. Market structure is everything, right? So when we say the market is in a downtrend, this is what we mean. Comes down and then it will retrace a bit, come down, retrace a bit, come down. So when the market is reacting this way, we say the market is in a downtrend. So clearly you are seeing from the 15 minutes time frame, that's what the market is doing. The market comes down and then goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. You understand, right? It comes down to this level, will go up, has come down to this level, and it's now coming up. Now how I analyze the market, or how I take my trade, is I wait for so this is what I do. When the market comes down and then it goes up and then comes down again, okay, and then it goes up, now I know that the market is in a downtrend. Why? Because the market is breaking lows. Okay, so in a downtrend like this, okay, we call these areas lower low and we call this area a lower high. So if the market is reacting this way, if it breaks this low, we call it a break of structure, right? So that's exactly what happened here. You see this particular area, the market came down to this level, went up here, came down to this level, went up here, came down to this level, went up here. So you understand. So we call this area a lower low, this is a lower high. So what happened right here between here and here is a break of structure. So my strategy is that whenever a break of structure occurs, okay, now there is an area you call a supply area, and that supply area is the area where a lot of sellers, so if the market is going down, sellers are in charge of the market. And so all you need is to check the trend of the market. So if the market is going down, it means sellers are taking charge. But there is a point in the market where sellers come in, and so we created this low, went up high, created this low again, went up high, created this low, right, went up high. So when the market created this low and went up high, sellers came in again and broke this low. So sellers caused a break of structure. Now the dynamics or the trading strategy is that whenever sellers come in and then they break a structure, you identify the area where the sellers came in the most, and that is where we call the supply region. And how do you identify the supply region? It is the last green candle. So we are going down, so it means the red candles are taking charge. So the last green candle before you had red candles that broke structure, that is what you call a supply region. So this last green candle, okay, this last green candle that caused the break of this structure is where we call the supply region. And usually, let's say 70% of the time, not always, but 70% of the time, markets will come back to that region. So when markets comes back to that region, you are seeing that the market is in a downtrend. All you have to do is you take a trade from that region to the downtrend you know. So you trade with the knowledge you know. You trade with what you know, right? With the knowledge, what you know. So clearly, as you can see, that's what happened. When the market broke structure, we identified the area where the sellers came in to break that structure, and that is our supply area. And look at what happened. Indeed, the market came back to that supply area, and what happened? Broke the structure again, right? Came back to that supply area and broke the structure again. So it's as simple as that. So all you have to do in a downtrend is to be identifying the supply regions. If the market is still in a downtrend, identify supply regions. You have nothing to do with demand regions, because if it is in an uptrend, that's when you identify a demand region. Okay, so you just do so for the opposite. So clearly we are seeing here, right? And how do you identify after the market reacts with the supply region? How do you identify that the market is finally about to reverse? Because sometimes the market might come to the supply region and break through the supply region, and simply means you are not going to get your trade. So how do you identify that the market is about to reverse? Now you can do that in two ways, or I do that in two ways. Now what I do personally is I mark the reaction of those candles in that region, right? And then that's the first style, or the first way. I mark the reaction of those candles in that region, and then I go onto a lower time frame, let's say a 1 minute time frame. Now once I enter the 1 minute time frame, what I am looking for is a change of character. Okay, I want the market. So on the 1 minute time frame, realize that the market was in an uptrend, going up. When they had a reaction with the supply region, what happened? It started going down. And so clearly the change of character will just tell you that, okay, the market wants to come back to the low level. So that's one way. Okay, another way is that from experience, another way is that you study the market and you see the chart pattern. Okay, and the chart pattern is that you realize that if the market wants to go down, especially in the 1 minute time frame, you see that the market will form head and shoulders pattern. And this is why if you want to be a good trader, you need to learn all these things. You need to learn the chart patterns and all those things, right? Because they are very, very important. So if you don't want to use these two ways, okay, I initially said I have two ways, right? There are actually three. So if you don't want to use all these two ways I just told you about, now let me you can just use another way I term common sense. And with this common sense, you need to realize what is happening with every single candle. Now every single candle you see is telling a story. Every single candle tells a story. Now you can use the story these candles are telling to take a trade. If you understand what every single candle is telling you, you'll be a good trader. Now what happens? So you realize that when the market created this low, this is our supply region we've marked. Okay, so you realize that when the market created this low and it was coming up, it simply tells you that now the buyers are in charge. Okay, so here the sellers took charge. When the market got here, the buyers came back in and the buyers pushed the market onto the supply region. Now look at how the candles reacted to the supply region, and that could tell you a story. Now look at the first candle. This first candle was the candle that touched the supply region, and this candle was a big candle. It started off as a green candle, went up, got to this level, okay, and then the sellers pushed the candle back to this level. So if you see a candle with a long wick, what it simply means is that, and it is a green candle, it tells you that the sellers were strong. So the sellers were able to push the candle from here to this level. But when it got here, the buyers were able to push the candle from here to this level. But when it got here, the sellers pushed it back to this level. So this should tell you that there is a strong area here. There's a strong selling pressure here. The sellers are waiting over here because the buyers were able to push from here to here, but the sellers pushed it back down. So it tells you that this area is a no-go zone for the sellers. They are strong over there. So the buyers from this second candle that had a reaction with the region, right? The buyers came through again. They were like, okay, we came through the first time. You were able to push it to this level. We are coming through again. We are still strong. And the buyers came through again. It got here. The sellers pushed it to this level. And look at the third candle. The buyers were able to push it from here to here, and the sellers also pushed it. And this was more like a tug of war. Now, if you are trading and you see a candle that looks like the plus sign, like this one, it is called the doji. If you see the doji, what it simply tells you is the strength of the buyers and sellers, more like at that point, is equal. It simply tells you that there was a war and no one won in that region. So whenever you see the plus sign or the plus candle, That's what it tells you. It tells you that there was some sort of war in that region and no one won. Now, imagine, listen to, let me tell you something, right? If buyers are in charge, because at this point, buyers were in charge. So if buyers are in charge and they get to a region where now the fight is at par, it should tell you that then the sellers are also strong at that region. Because buyers are supposed to be in charge. But when they got to a certain region, the strength between the buyers and the sellers was equal. And so that point should tell you that then the sellers are also coming in. So once you see a sign like this in a supply region, especially knowing the story behind all these other candles, it should tell you that the sellers are taking over. And look at what happened in the next, with the next candle. With the next candle, we had a big red candle. And the red candle, this red candle should tell you that the sellers have totally taken over. Because the buyers were strong here. When they got here, the sellers pushed through. They tried to come back again here. The sellers came. They tried to come back here. And the sellers were able to show equal strength. And then at this point, the sellers came fully through here. It should tell you that now the sellers have taken over. And so this is also another way to know how to take a trade. So once you know the reaction from these 4 candles, 15 minutes 4 candles, it should tell you that the sellers are in charge, and it is a supply region. So the sellers are in charge. So the sellers will be pushing the market to break this low, because that is the role of the sellers. The sellers are just there to be breaking lows. So when the market got here, the sellers came in over here and they broke this low. So if the market has gotten to this area, which is the supply area, and sellers are now in charge, it simply tells you that the sellers are going to break this low. So all you do is to set your take profit to this low, right? And indeed, that's exactly what happened. The sellers were able to break that low, and this was a cool trade. Okay, so I took this trade and I have a video on that. So all you have to do once the sellers break this low is to identify other supply regions, okay, because the sellers are still in charge. So once the sellers broke this low, we identified the supply region that caused the break of this low, and we realized that this was the region. This was the last green candle that broke it. But I've told you, the market will not always come there. Sometimes the market will just go further. Sometimes the market will come. No problem. All you have to do is to be identifying your supply regions and be waiting for the market to come there. Okay, so this is a supply region we've marked out. I was expecting the market to come there, but the sellers wanted to take the market further, so they still went further. So they got to this point, right? They got to this point, and the buyers came through, because you see this was a red candle, and the buyers were able to push it to this point for the candle to become green. And so it tells you that the buyers are strong here. So when the buyers came through over here, now what happened? The sellers broke this level. This was a low. So the sellers came through and broke this low. So if the sellers were able to break this low, it should tell you that let me notice the supply region that caused the break of that low, and the supply region is here, the last green candle that caused the break of that low. So all you have to do is to wait for the market to come there. Right now, as you are seeing, the market is coming to that area. The market has bottomed over here, and the market is coming to that area on the 15 minutes time frame. So you just be patient. You wait for the market to come there. So if the market gets here and then we see the first 3 or 4 reactions, or any of them, you can go to the 1 minute time frame and see what is happening, or you see the first 3, or you check the pattern, or you see the first 3 or 4 reactions, how the candles are going to react to that area. Then you know that the market is now going back down to probably break this low. And so if you tell me right now where Bitcoin is going to, it depends on the reaction from here. So the market can decide to break this area. So this is a strong area where sellers are waiting to take the market further down. right? So if the market gets here and then breaks through this area, then that tells you that the buyers have taken over, and now we are going for an uptrend. It tells you that now the buyers have taken over, and we should be looking at demand areas but not supply areas. So in a downtrend, you look at supply areas. In an uptrend, you look at demand areas. So that is the analysis on Bitcoin. So if you want to know whether Bitcoin will be going further, so it got to 98,000, right? So you want to know whether Bitcoin will go further down or will be coming up. It depends on this area on the 15 minutes time frame. So I'm waiting from my chart. I am waiting for the reaction, and when it gets here and gets rejected several times, then I'll just I know the market is going down, right? So yeah, that's what we are waiting for right now. Share your thoughts in the comment box. If you don't understand anything, just let me know. Thank you.